What's up everybody, Playing here on Ben Dice. Today we're going to be discussing a controversial issue in D&D called power gaming. So to start off, let's get a basic understanding of what power gaming is. If we don't have a definition, then we probably won't be agreeing on what we're talking about later on, so it'd be good to get a good definition before we get started here. So to me, power gaming is a player who uses the game system to create the strongest character they can. Now, this character can be really good at combat, and it could be really good in a social situation, or it can be really good in basically any situation, as long as there is a specific situation that they're good at. They can also be good at multiple situations. So, for instance, if you have a power gamer who is trying to be good at combat and social encounters, then that is also considered power gaming. So, to be clear, power gaming is okay in certain situations. If you're running a campaign that's all about, killing things and strategy, and it's all about the combat D&D, power gaming is completely acceptable because it's likely that the other players are also going to be power gaming. But when you're in a situation where there's a lot of role playing, where there's a lot of character development and character encounters that are not combat, power gaming can be a little detrimental to the game. I've come up with a few reasons why power gaming can be a downside to the game you're playing. So first, one player can outshine the others. This means like if a character is really good at combat, then the other characters might not feel like they're contributing in combat, because the other one is able to just handle all of the things that are thrown at them. Second, the player has a focus on numbers rather than who their character is. I found that with power gamers, their characters usually aren't very developed. They're more along the lines of, oh hey, I have 18 in strength, rather than, oh, my character came from Cadefall and is now here because he's looking for a lost relic. The final reason why power gaming is detrimental to your game is because it creates a video game-esque atmosphere. And this can really limit your players' imagination and what they want to accomplish in the game. They get the feel that you're in a video game, you're limited. Whereas you play an RPG so that you aren't limited. You can use your imagination. You can solve problem any way you want as long as you have a decent dice roll and it makes sense. When it comes down to it, the best way to deal with a power gamer is to stop them before the game even starts. So this means as the DM, you will need to know what characters can do before your game even starts. You'll need to know where your players are going with their character. You'll need to know how they're trying to develop them. If you see that a character is not that developed, then you probably need to go up to that player, ask them a few questions, figure out what it is that character's motivations are, and so on. I have another video called 7 Questions You Need to Ask Your Character. Go ahead and check that one out to get more information on how to build a better character. And after you've developed who the character is, you can then figure out what it is the character can do combat-wise, social-wise, anything. Knowing what they're good at and knowing what they're bad at. One of the things that I always encourage my players to have is to have a flaw. Characters are no fun if they don't have flaws. Adventurers are superheroes, right? You're going out, you're doing this thing, you're saving the princess, you're saving the day, right? That's what an adventurer does. Imagine a comic book hero like Superman who didn't have a weakness. Imagine if he just wasn't ever able to have any opposition. So like let's say Superman wasn't weak to kryptonite and he wasn't weak to red sun radiation. How would Superman ever be stopped? No one would ever be able to overpower Superman. The only way that they could do that is essentially just make a stronger Superman. And that's not really any fun because then that stronger Superman can't be overcome. So character flaws are very important, and they also help stop power gaming because a character that has a flaw will then have a reason to not be power gaming all the time. You can easily create a situation where they cannot act in the optimal way. If you do see a player that's trying to power game, I suggest going up to them and talking to them. It's very important to have a good communication line between the players and the DM, because otherwise the game isn't really going to be that much fun. Remember, the DM is not there to lead all of the other people. You're all there to have fun together. You're not in charge of them. Now, you might be scheduling, you might be organizing different things, you might be the group organizer, but you're not the leader. You need to remember that. You do arbitrate rules, and you do come up with some of the story, but you don't come up with all of the story. The reason that the players have characters is because they come up with their character's story as well. So you need to recognize that. When you notice that a character is going to be power gaming or overpowered or, strong in any situation, maybe ask the player why they're that way. Get a good basis of understanding of why the character is that way. You can even allow them to have that. But then it also informs your world that you're creating about that character. A character who has 20 strength when he's 10 years old is going to be known around at least locally. It's a very strong young child, right? So there might be, people who are afraid of him. There might be people who want to challenge him. There might be different things that the world entails. And that might cause different situations for that character that make them harder to play and harder to actually realize as a character. Finally, we're going to go into some ways that you can rein in a power gamer once your game has started. These are more focused on creating a significant encounter for that player and for the rest of the group, while still maintaining the fun and the enjoyment of D&D. I've broken these tips into two categories. We have one for combat and one for social. I think that the rest of the situations aren't very encountered frequently, and so they shouldn't really be addressed. So we're going to just talk about combat and social today. A good way to deal with power gaming in combat is to change up the tactics of the combat. If your character that is power gaming is a fighter, and they have no way to really fly around and get up into the air, maybe you can have a bunch of sirens that are flying around or above them even, that they can't reach but have some ranged form of attack. That can immediately cause the fighter to not even be able to hit them, and really just nullify the fact that he has all of these stats into hitting something really hard with his sword. Another thing is, remember that this isn't a video game. There's this mentality in D&D that you can always win a fight. That's not true. You can have fights that are unwinnable. You can make the players run. Now, if that player thinks that since they're power gaming they can handle anything, then they might die. And that just might be how it is. Remember, you can have encounters that are unwinnable. If you have a caster that's power gaming, you can't really stop them from moving around or have physical barriers so they can't use ranged attacks. But you do have some magic that you can use yourself. There's these spells called Silence and Anti-Magic Zone, things like that, dispel magic, that you can really cause some trouble to the spellcaster. Finally, you can split up the group. If your power gamed character is over fighting all of these, hordes of goblins to keep the party safe while the party encounters the boss, then that power gamer is no longer in the boss fight. They're not there to actually, get rid of your boss quickly. You can have a meaningful encounter that way. The only problem with this, if you have to make sure that the encounter that the power gaming character and that the party is having are both equally satisfying. In my opinion, social power gamed characters are a little harder to control. This is because their limits are not quite as fleshed out in the game, in the rules. But a few ways to do it is that there are spells that can mind control other players. There's spells that can take player agency away. And if you take away a player's agency, that silver tongue that they have isn't going to really matter anymore. The person who controlled their mind can even use their silver tongue to get what they want. You can have the villain take over the mind of your power gamed socially character and convince the king that he actually needs to allow these people inside his castle, even though he knows it's a bad idea. Another way you can deal with a socially power gamed character is by making the character actually roleplay to get information, rather than just rolling a dice. Everyone knows you can, roll a persuasion check, get a 26, and figure out everything you want. If you make the character talk to the NPC and figure out what the character wants through the dialogue with the NPC, it has much more meaning and it's not just about a dice roll. So a power gamed character can't just easily get the information by rolling a dice. These are just some tips to help guide you on your way, but ultimately it comes down to you. Do you even want power gaming in your group? If you see someone doing it, are you going to ask them to leave? Are you going to ask them tone it down? Are you going to ask them to figure out a new way to make their character? Are you just going to throw some flaws onto them? You really have to try it out, try a few different ways, and figure out what really suits to you. These tips are only the ones that I've thought have been successful, and so they're the ones I'm sharing, but it might be different for you. Alright guys, that's about it for me. If you liked the video, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. If you've had any experiences with power gaming in the past, go ahead and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your experiences. Alright guys, I'll see you next week. Have a good one.